Well, hey, you guys. So, when it comes to money, it's always best to keep things practical, but that doesn't mean that a little imagination isn't an important part of building wealth, too. So, for this episode, it's going to be all for you daydreamers out there because today I want to talk to you about what you could do if you didn't have any debt. So, it is time to look at the real opportunity cost and get intentional about what your life could look like. We're going to be doing some calculating and estimating and imagining. So by the end of this episode, you should feel really confident and equipped to reach your goals and to start building the life that you want without debt and payments weighing you down. And stick around because at the end, I'm revealing one of the biggest obstacles in people's way when it comes to building wealth and how to fix it. All right, first and foremost, what is opportunity cost and how does it affect your money? Well, opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from other alternatives. So, for example, the choice to store large amounts of cash in a regular savings account creates an opportunity cost in terms of earning interest if that money was invested elsewhere. And in my opinion, debt is the ultimate opportunity cost. Even if savings aren't on your radar yet, any debt that you carry around is robbing you from wealth that you could be building. Instead, you're just throwing it away on minimum payments. And it's never fun to be throwing away money on interest for food that you've already eaten or a concert you've already attended. Speaking of, next, let's talk about what opportunity costs might look like in your budget specifically. So brace yourself, because I'm going to do a little Rachel-splaining here. And again, trust the process and stay with me because this is so interesting. So this question might sound like a no-brainer at first, but have you ever really thought about how swiping and payments work? So the opportunity cost is literally a part of every single purchase that we make. Every dollar that you spend is one less dollar that you could have for something else. So if you're debt-free, then this goes for different line items in your budget. So for example, if you choose to splurge on 3 Uber Eats meals every week, that could be $50 less that you have to spend on vacation shopping or back-to-school supplies for your kids. And then when looking at debt specifically, the stakes are immediately higher. So every payment that you make towards your car, a couple of $100s, that's less couple of $100s that you might have to spend on a date night at your favorite restaurant or a bougie spa day. And if you add up the average level of debt for the 3 most common debts that people carry, we're talking about thousands of dollars that you're missing out on in your monthly budget. The average monthly student loan payment is $393. The average monthly car payment is $499. And the average credit card minimum payment is $30 plus fees and interest. So say somebody has 5 credit cards, that's at least $150 per month going toward high interest rates on things that they've already enjoyed. And according to these numbers, the average American is tossing about $1,042 out the window every single month in payments. Which brings me to my next point. Let's do a little calculating. So let's say you freed up that margin in your budget. Not only would you have significantly more money to spend, but think about how much money you're losing with that money not being invested. So, for example, let's take the total of all of those average payments. And according to Ramsey's investment calculator, if you invested that $1,042 every month starting at age 35, by the time you're 65 and you're ready to retire, that would be over $1.2 million with a really conservative 7% return rate, okay? So it's probably way more than that. And again, that's not even including a company match of 401k if you're investing in that too. That is literally millions of dollars, you guys, that you're throwing away at payments that could be yours. And for those of you that might still feel like a little skeptical, let's just take a portion of that total and let's see what we find. So let's say you paid off your student loan debt and you didn't have the minimum payments for your credit cards, but you're still hanging on to that car payment. Well, if you were just to invest that car payment of $499 per month with 7% return rate from age 25 instead of 35, then you would have $1.3 million at retirement. Unbelievable. And that is the power, you guys, of compound interest. Investing less than half of your original total just 10 years earlier, you end up with more money at the end. I mean, it's so wild. So not only is the debt itself a huge opportunity cost, but the time that you're spending tied down with payments is equally as detrimental. So at this point, some of you might be thinking, okay, we've talked about a lot of numbers, but when do we get to do a little daydreaming that you mentioned earlier, Rachel? Okay, well, now's the time. So first, I want you to look at your monthly budget. If you're not officially in the habit of using a budgeting app, just pull up your bank account and choose a payment that you wish you didn't have to deal with every month. So just pick one. Next, take some time to reflect on what you wish you could be doing with that money. Is it travel? Is it a house? Is it a bougie gym membership that maybe brings you joy? I don't know what it is, but it's amazing of what you could be doing with that money instead of it going out the door. And if you're married, I would say grab your spouse and talk to them and kind of brainstorm, hey, what do we want for our future? Our retirement goals? Do we want to pay for our kids' college? Do we want a home renovation? Like, what do we want to do? Because here's the power in playing the hypothetical game. When you ask yourself questions about the future, you're going to be so glad that you did, because it's actually going to prove out what you really want. And then you're going to have to see, okay, do we have the ability to achieve all of this? And of course, probably not all at once, but over time, what do we do? Because if you're buried with multiple types of debt, it's going to be really tough to hit those goals. So that may actually give you the motivation to start attacking some of your debt. And now it's time to talk about one of the most common obstacles, though, that I hear from people all the time when it comes to trying to build wealth. It's not the government or the housing market or the student loan debt. Sometimes it's actually the spouse. So as we're talking about daydreaming with your spouse, some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Rachel, that all sounds great, but my spouse will never get on board. Well, here's some things to think about. I would say run some numbers and just say, hey, what if we got out of debt? Here's the timeline it would take to get out of debt. Here's how much extra money we would need every month to get out of debt in this amount of time. Here's the amount of money that if we didn't have debt would be invested. Here's the amount of money that we could save for next year on a family trip. Like, start running actual numbers, and sometimes seeing visually what's going on is so helpful for people. And then also talk about your why. Why do you want to do this? Is it because there's a level of fear for you? Is there a level of, if something happens, we're not going to be okay because we are deeply in debt and have no savings? Is it because maybe you grew up a certain way and you want your kids to have a different lifestyle or a different way of life than what you had? Whatever it is, talk to your spouse about that, because that's really important. That's part of you. And again, if you're in somewhat of a healthy, functional marriage, there'll be a conversation there. And hopefully your spouse is actually listening and wants to hear it and actually wants to know what's going on inside of you. And if they don't, then that's usually another flag that's raised that, hey, maybe this isn't a money issue. Maybe there's other stuff in your marriage that you guys need to talk about first and get that settled before you can move on to the subject. But money is a very revealing topic, especially when it comes to marriage. So listen, out of everything that we've talked about today, I think the easiest step for minimizing the opportunity cost is that no matter where you are financially, you need to get on a budget. I think one of the best things that you can do is be intentional with your paycheck. So many people feel like they got a raise once they budgeted because they didn't realize how much money was going out on these purchases that they didn't realize they were making. It was just like spontaneous. So do a Google search, type in every dollar, and start tracking your spending today. And once you have the exact number on some of the specifics around your money, that's going to give you a much clearer picture on what your next step needs to be. But if you still need a handhold while you create your first budget, I'll link an episode where I unpack a budget with $55,000 of debt so you can see a real life example. So remember, you guys, to take control of your money and create a life you love.